Hey, what you doing this? Hey!
What are you doing with those two small girls over there?
It was supposed to be routine. Just past 2:15 a.m., on a quiet Missouri highway, a white van drifted across the center line. Officer Klein hit the lights. The van didn't stop. Not immediately. It kept rolling for almost a minute. Slow, deliberate, like the driver wasn't unsure, just waiting. When it finally pulled over, it chose a spot with no lights. No cameras, just trees and gravel. Inside, the man didn't seem nervous. He had no ID, no insurance. He spoke in calm, rehearsed phrases. Didn't see you behind me. Just trying to get home. Nothing about it felt urgent. Until the second officer circled to the back and heard a sound. A low thud. Then another. Then something that wasn't a sound, but a voice. Muffled. Weak. A cry for help, buried under fabric and steel. They ordered the back door open. The man didn't move. So they opened it themselves. The Bodycam catches it clearly. Not because it meant to, but because it was rolling. The flashlight cuts across the van floor. What it lands on is chaos. A woman. Barefoot. Hair soaked. Wrists chained. Clothes torn. Screaming. You found me. Don't let him talk. The light bounces off metal as she lunges forward. The van isn't a vehicle. It's a box. Insulated. Padded. And for at least one person inside, designed to disappear. Her name was Erin Marsh. 27. Reported missing 5 years ago, then quietly found months later, alone and disoriented near a gas station 2 counties away, where she told police she had run away, and they believed her, or at least pretended to. Her case was marked resolved within a week, her file closed, and her name slowly forgotten. But now here she was again, barefoot, bruised, shackled to the floor of a van. Saying this wasn't the first time she had escaped, only that last time she made the mistake of coming back. She was calm at first, quiet, eyes scanning everything, asking about the date and the officers' names, before she finally looked at them and said, "He let me go once because he knew no one would believe me." Paramedics documented the bruises and the marks on her wrists, the needle tracks behind her elbow, and the chipped fingernails that looked like they had been clawing at something, or somewhere, for longer than anyone could guess. The officers asked if she knew the man driving the van. She nodded. "I know him. He knows me." And when they asked how long she had been held, she didn't answer right away. She just looked past them, toward the open highway, and said, "Long enough to stop counting." By the time the van was fully impounded and processed, the sun was rising. Inside, nothing looked like it belonged in a vehicle meant for transport. The seats had been ripped out, replaced with plywood and foam, bolted restraints, and strips of blackout fabric nailed across every window. There was no rear handle on the inside of the sliding door. No light. No exit. The passenger seat, at first glance, looked untouched, but inside the glove box were 3 prepaid phones, all wiped, a hunting knife with a partially cleaned blade, and a cheap leather wallet filled with fake IDs under different names, none of which matched the driver. And in the back, beneath the mattress, they found a small compartment, one that wasn't visible until the panel was kicked. Inside it, a crumpled page. Just names, first names only. 2 of them matched women reported missing 2 and 3 years ago, both in counties over, both never found. Erin didn't need time to read them. "I was with them," she said quietly. "They didn't make it." Forensics found traces of blood in the foam under the mattress, though not enough to prove a death, and the rear camera ports wired into the wall had no connected recording device, which meant the footage, if it existed, had already been removed. And in that moment, what started as a traffic stop had already become something else. Not just abduction, not just cruelty, but something that had happened before, and would have happened again. His name was Alan Ridge. 49 years old. No active warrants. No recent arrests. Just a short trail of dropped charges, mostly misdemeanors, One complaint of unlawful restraint dismissed without explanation, and a restraining order from over a decade ago that was never renewed. He said very little during intake. Answered what he had to. No lawyer. No emotion. Just a straight face and a slow, even breath. But it wasn't the silence that stood out. It was the footage, not from the Bodycam, but from a gas station an hour before the stop. In the video, Alan is seen standing in the restroom, alone, looking into the mirror. He isn't washing his hands. He isn't adjusting anything. He's just smiling. A small, rehearsed, weightless smile, the kind someone practices when they're thinking about something no one else would understand. He fixes his collar, smooths his shirt, then walks out. Detectives start tracing his past. They pull up a business license, a computer repair shop he ran in 2019, which was quietly investigated for fraud but never prosecuted. The building now sits abandoned, though neighbors say he still visits late at night, usually alone. And when they recheck older evidence from one of the cold cases, a missing girl from 2017, they find his fingerprints on the edge of her diary, a detail no one noticed before. He never reported knowing her, never filed anything. But her name is also on the list they found in his van, and so is Aaron's. It didn't take long to find the building. It wasn't registered under Alan Ridge's name, but it had been purchased by a shell LLC he set up 7 years ago, listed as a retreat center in a rural part of the county, sitting on the edge of a tree line, near nothing and seen by no one. It used to be a church, the kind that closed quietly, with no ceremony, the kind that no one misses once it's gone. Inside, the pews had been removed, the altar stripped bare. At first, it looked empty, dust, debris, a few broken chairs, but in the back, behind what used to be the baptistry, they found a concealed door. Behind it, a staircase, and beneath that, a basement with reinforced soundproofing, hand-built restraints, and padded walls stained with something no one wanted to test without gloves. There were no bodies, but there were mattresses, 3 of them, and on the walls, calendars, hand-drawn, color-coded, with words like quiet day, push time, and return window. In one corner, they found 2 plastic tubs filled with personal belongings, hair ties, shoes, cheap bracelets, wallets without cash, IDs with faces that hadn't been seen in years, and taped to the inside of a cabinet door, a name, one that had never been publicly linked to Alan Ridge before, which meant he had another victim, one no one even knew was missing, and she might still be alive. Erin's original case, the one from 5 years ago, had been closed quickly. Too quickly. Her disappearance was marked voluntary just 6 days after she was found walking barefoot along a highway, confused, dehydrated, and unwilling to name where she'd been. The report said she was emotionally unstable, and that there was no evidence of foul play. That report was signed off by Detective Darren Holt. Holt had served over 20 years in the same department. He retired early, and during that investigation, his name barely showed up. But as investigators reopened the case file, they noticed something strange. Holt's digital signature appears on more than just the closing memo. He also modified timestamps, adjusted location notations, and logged a visit to Erin's mother's house that, according to her, never happened. And in one piece of old Bodycam footage from 2019, Holt is seen standing at Erin's front door, waving off her mother mid-sentence as she asks to reopen the case. It's done. You want her home, right? Let it be. The footage was never submitted into evidence. Then came the tip. Anonymous, sent through an encrypted message. Check Holt's business account transfers. Look for Plainside Logistics. It's not real. They did. Plainside Logistics was a shell company, and its payouts matched the date Holt cleared Erin's file. When he was brought in for questioning, Holt said nothing. No denial. No explanation. Just a stare. And then, quietly, I want a lawyer. But by then, it wasn't about his words anymore. It was about how many people knew, and chose not to act. It was found behind a false panel in the church basement, tucked between insulation and wood, sealed in plastic, folded flat like someone meant for it to disappear but couldn't quite throw it away. A notebook, cheap, lined, water-damaged in the corners. Inside were pages written in different hands, some shaky, some careful. One of them was Aaron's, matched by handwriting experts within hours. The entries weren't dated, but they told a clear pattern. Descriptions of routines, of cycles, of the words he used, the days he didn't speak, the days he did, of when the light would turn red, and what came next when it did. Over and over again, one phrase came up. Release is worse than staying. Some pages were torn, others stained, but one entry stood out. A name, not Aaron's, not any of the victims known publicly. Just one word, underlined twice, Madeline. No last name, no age, no details. Just the note. She lasted the longest. He broke her different. And then, the last page, not written by Aaron. The handwriting was tighter, smaller, like someone afraid to take up space. He's building again. New walls, new route. Soon. It wasn't a memory. It was a warning. Which meant someone else had written it. And they hadn't escaped. Not yet. The air inside the basement felt wrong. Forensics flagged it almost immediately. Not because of the smell, but because of what didn't smell right. It was sterile, processed, chemically flat. And when they tested the vents, they found traces of vaporized sedatives, the kind used to calm animals before surgery. It wasn't just a hiding place. It was a controlled space, engineered for silence. And then the dogs started barking. Near the furnace, in a corner that had been walled off crudely with cinder block and foam, the cadaver team found temperature anomalies. Heat was leaking through the cracks, even though the furnace hadn't run in weeks. They started digging. Behind the panel, beneath layers of drywall and scrap wood, they uncovered a sealed compartment, lined in plastic, shallow, but not empty. Inside were human remains. Not a full body. Not even one. Just fragments, bone, teeth, scraps of fabric, and a child's sock. There was no ID, no way to confirm who it had been. But Erin knew. Before they even showed her the photos, she asked, "Did you find the girl with the red bracelet?" She stopped screaming 2 nights before I got out. The media didn't wait for confirmation. Bodycam stills leaked. The van, the basement, the scream. And within hours, the public knew something had gone very wrong, not just with Alan Ridge, but with every person and process that should have stopped him years ago. It was found behind the sun visor. Folded once, tucked cleanly into the crease, no markings on the outside. Just another piece of paper in a van already filled with too much. But inside, names, no full names, just initials, dates, and short notes scribbled in the margins. Some were crossed out, some circled, some marked with a simple dash. At the top, it read, Trurai o Ruens. Investigators started checking. Within hours, 5 names were matched to active cases, 3 confirmed missing. 2 found dead in separate counties, both ruled accidental at the time, 1 overdose, 1 no foul play suspected. 1 name stood out. A girl listed as a runaway. 17. Last seen 10 days earlier, walking home from a late shift at a restaurant outside Kansas City. No family had heard from her since. And next to her initials on the list, a single note. Farm ready. Search priority flipped immediately. Everything narrowed to one goal. Find her. Now. It was the one property Alan Ridge didn't try to bury in paperwork. An old farmhouse, legally inherited from an uncle, still in his real name, still taxed, still listed, as if he wanted it to seem forgotten, but not invisible. Detectives flagged it immediately, but something felt off. No lights, no power account, no activity for months. Then came the drone pass. The farmhouse looked abandoned. Cracked windows, dry grass, collapsed shed. But the thermal scan told a different story. Under the floorboards, behind the kitchen, there was heat. Not much. Just enough. The raid team went in fast. They breached the floor. And below, Behind a false panel and a second locked hatch, they found the room. Steel reinforced, padded walls, a cot, a bucket, a tray of half-rotted food, and a girl. Barely conscious, dehydrated, covered in dirt, but alive. She matched the runaway from the list. When they told her it was over, she didn't react at first, just stared, then whispered something they didn't understand. A string of numbers and phrases over and over. Later, Aaron heard the recording. She finished the sentence for them. Those were the rules, the countdown. That's how he trained us to sleep. Everything Aaron had said, every detail, every map, every term, it all matched. Which meant she had never been confused. She had just been ignored. The news spread fast, faster than the case could keep up with. The leaked footage, the list, the recovered girl, it was all out now. No filters. No waiting for official reports. Just names and images, passed from screen to screen, faster than anyone could control. And then the calls started. 2 women, both from different states, both with stories that didn't match any existing files, came forward separately, but said the same thing. They described the van, the mattress, the feeling of being watched without knowing where the camera was. One said she escaped after 3 days, another after 5. Both were found disoriented days later and were either dismissed or hospitalized, labeled unstable or under the influence. Neither was believed. One of them still had the burner phone he gave her. It had 1 number in it. When traced, it led back to a prepaid account under one of Alan Ridge's false names. She said the last thing he told her was, "You're free now, but if you talk, she'll suffer." They never knew who she was, but Aaron did, because the pattern was never about one victim. It was about testing systems, breaking them, and letting the ones who survived think they imagined it. When investigators pulled Ridge's travel logs, the connection became clear. Different towns, same van, same gaps in jurisdiction. And by then, the case wasn't just local anymore. It was federal. At first, it looked like a pattern of cruelty. Isolated abductions, silent houses, duct-taped maps. But when federal analysts reviewed Alan Ridge's recovered drives, they found something else. Charts. Not of victims, of police. Response times. Radio delays. Call logs. Every 911 call made during one of his drops was mapped and timed, not from the victim's side, but from his. Some of the survivors had never called the police themselves. He had. He was the one reporting disturbances. He was the one calling in suspicious activity. And he was doing it to see how long it would take for someone to show up. They weren't just abductions. They were controlled tests, watching how law enforcement failed to connect the same van, the same routine, across counties and states. Victims weren't just hostages. They were variables. And every time someone escaped or was ignored, he took notes. One file labeled Return 04B showed side-by-side comparisons of response times from different police departments for identical calls, made from burner phones within the same hour. He wasn't just hiding. He was watching, measuring, and perfecting. That's when the behavioral unit changed the classification. Not serial abduction, not trafficking. They called it something else. Behavioral terrorism. There was one dash cam that caught him. A state highway camera outside Jefferson County, timestamped 3 days before his arrest. The van was clean. No markings. No passengers visible. But the footage mattered because of what came after it. A trail of missed rest stops, bypassed gas stations, and a side road that led to nowhere. Ridge drove alone that night. No radio, no phone calls, just silence. But the onboard dashcam, recovered later, caught his voice. Barely above a whisper. "She'll talk. You knew it. You knew it." He said it 3 times. He passed 2 rest areas without stopping, even though he had no gas in reserve. Instead, he pulled onto a service road that didn't appear on most maps. One that cut through abandoned farmland with no cameras, no signal, and no exits. When they recovered the van, it was clean, scrubbed. wiped. But inside the glove box was a folded sketch. Rough, but clear. A hand-drawn map of an area investigators hadn't searched yet. Marked with a circle and a single word, final. FBI agents searched the location over the next 14 hours. They found a shallow grave, then another. Both marked, both recent. Inside, human remains. 2 different victims, one still unidentified. One confirmed as a missing girl from the list. She had only been gone 2 weeks. And just like that, the last drive wasn't an escape. It was a cleanup. It was quiet in the courtroom when she took the stand. No cameras, no press allowed inside. Just attorneys, federal investigators, and the 2 men who had tried to erase her life from the system. Alan Ridge and the retired detective who cleared her case file 5 years earlier. Erin didn't look at either of them. She sat upright, hands flat, voice steady, and for the next hour, she gave them everything. Dates, names, smells, the feeling of metal floors, the number of times she counted the same crack in the wall just to stay awake. She didn't cry. She spoke like someone who had already done that enough. She told them about the calendar, the coded punishments, the sedatives, the nights where the light turned red and no one spoke again until morning. And then she paused. She looked directly at the judge and said, "The first time I survived. The second time, I remembered." She pointed to Ridge, then to the former cop. And without raising her voice, she said, "He broke me. He buried me. And he told me if I said anything again, no one would believe it." That silence after she finished, it didn't feel like relief. It felt like something had finally settled into place. Her words went public within hours. Not through footage, through transcript. And by the end of the week, 3 states had introduced legislation to review how missing persons are classified, and how easily their cases are erased. It was almost an afterthought. The farmhouse had already been processed, cleared, logged. The girl had been recovered. Ridge was in federal custody. The story was everywhere. But one of the agents, working a secondary walkthrough for structural diagrams, noticed a vent cover that didn't match the others. It was older, unpainted, slightly warped. Behind it, hidden under a hatch cut directly into the foundation, they found one more room. No camera, no mattress, no restraints in use. But they were there, stacked, labeled, prepared. 3 metal hooks anchored to the floor. A space heater running low, set to 58 degrees. A tray of clean water. A pair of shoes that didn't belong to anyone they'd identified. And on the wall, a single piece of paper, taped, handwritten. It listed supplies: red cord, radio, second tray, name tag, Maddie. There was no sign of her, no record, no print, nothing on any of the recovered devices, just the name. Not crossed out, not marked as completed. Still waiting. They shut the hatch, sealed the house, and filed it as part of the federal archive. But for Erin, and for everyone else who made it out, that final room said what they already knew. The case was over, but the pattern never was.